Elena stood in front of the bathroom mirror as the first light of dawn filtered through the blinds. The mirror reflected a tired young woman, 28 years old, worn down by life. Her uniform hung loosely on her, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and dark circles marked the weight of too many sleepless nights. On the counter, rejection letters from job applications lay scattered, alongside a final notice for the electricity bill. She looked at herself and whispered the same words she had for years, "I'm not enough." Her voice trembled, not from emotion, but from the belief that those words were true. Every morning was the same: wake up, survive the day, repeat. Her dreams of becoming a teacher had long since been buried under the pressures of raising her little brother after their parents passed. The weight of responsibility had taken its toll, not just physically but emotionally. She no longer saw her own value, she had become her own harshest critic. As she stood there, lost in that downward spiral of self-blame, a small knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Her little brother, Marco, only 8 years old, peeked in with sleep in his eyes and a gentle smile. "You're my hero," he said quietly, wrapping his arms around her waist. Elena's heart clenched. She forced a smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. She didn't believe him, not yet. Years of inner negativity had buried any self-worth she once had. But Marco's words lingered. As she turned off the bathroom light and walked toward another long day, something about his small voice echoed louder than her own for the first time. Maybe, just maybe, not everything her mirror showed was true. Later that week, the summer heat was unbearable. Elena had finished her shift and wandered into the local library, not looking for books, just cold air and a place to rest. She noticed a flyer on the door: free motivational talk, today at 3 p.m. With nothing to lose, she stepped inside. The seminar was small, held in a quiet corner room with folding chairs and a modest banner. A woman in her 60s, elegant but weathered, stood at the front. Ms. Rivera didn't look like the usual kind of speaker Elena had seen on YouTube. Her voice was calm, strong, and carried a deep familiarity, like someone who had walked through storms and made it out alive. Ms. Rivera shared her story openly. Years of abuse. Depression that almost took her life. Sleeping on benches, feeling invisible. But then, one day, she began talking to herself differently, not with anger, but with compassion. Not with hopelessness, but with quiet encouragement. "El dialogo interno no es solo una voz," she said, eyes scanning the room. "Es tu destino." Your inner dialogue isn't just a voice. It's your destiny. The words hit Elena unexpectedly. She didn't know why, but her chest tightened. For a moment, she felt something flicker, a soft, unfamiliar warmth. She had always believed change came from circumstances, not from within. Yet, here was this woman, who had been through worse and stood proud, healed, and whole. Elena didn't walk out of the seminar transformed. But as she left, she felt something stir, like a small seed had been planted inside her. A thought she hadn't dared believe in a long time: maybe I can change too. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, a pen in one hand and a small stack of colorful sticky notes in the other. She stared at the first one for a while before writing, "I am worthy." The words looked strange, foreign, even. She almost laughed at how silly it felt. But something about Ms. Rivera's voice lingered in her mind. So she wrote another, "I am healing." Then one more, "I will rise." She stuck them on her mirror, then the wall beside her bed, then on the back of her bedroom door. Each morning, she'd read them aloud, quietly and awkwardly at first. She didn't believe them, not really. But she kept going. There was no magic moment. No dramatic change overnight. But slowly, the harsh voice in her head began to quiet. In its place, a gentler one began to form. She noticed small shifts in her behavior. One evening, she filled out an application for a part-time college course in early childhood education. Her hands trembled as she hit submit, but she did it. A week later, she ended a long friendship with someone who constantly criticized her and drained her spirit. It hurt, but she didn't look back. Soon, her bedroom became a battlefield of encouragement. Sticky notes multiplied like tiny cheerleaders, cheering her on in pastel blues, pinks, and yellows. Keep going. Your past is not your future. Breathe. Begin again. Her room had once been a place of exhaustion and hopelessness, but now it began to feel like a safe space, a sanctuary built on her own words. She still had doubts. Hard days didn't disappear. But her inner voice, once sharp and cruel, now had moments of softness. And in those moments, Elena saw a version of herself she wanted to become, and maybe already was. It was nearly midnight at the grocery store. The aisles were quiet, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and Elena moved like a ghost through her tasks, tired but steady. Then came the customer, angry, impatient, and loud. He shouted over a pricing error that wasn't her fault, his words sharp and cutting. "Do you even know how to do your job?" he barked. Her manager walked over, didn't ask questions, and sided with the man. "Elena, just apologize and move faster," he snapped. The humiliation hit her like a punch. Her throat tightened. She nodded quickly, blinked back tears, and rushed to the storage room. Behind the swinging door, surrounded by boxes and silence, she collapsed onto a crate, her hands trembling. The old voice returned, cruel and familiar, "You're nothing. You always mess it up. You don't belong here." The pain of every past failure surged back at once. But then, from somewhere deep within, another voice rose, stronger this time. "I am more than this moment." It wasn't loud, but it was steady. She repeated it again. "I am more than this moment." She took a long, shaky breath. Wiped her eyes. Stood up. When she walked back onto the floor, her head wasn't down. She didn't need to win the approval of the customer or even her manager. She just needed to remember who she was becoming. The next morning, as the sun peeked through her window, Elena sat at her desk and opened her laptop. With calm determination, she registered to speak at Ms. Rivera's next seminar. She didn't have it all figured out, but she knew this: her voice, her real voice, was finally breaking through. And for the first time, she wanted the world to hear it. 1 month later, the library auditorium was filled with quiet chatter and hopeful faces. Elena stood behind the podium, her hands slightly trembling. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back neatly, and a single post-it note tucked into her journal: "You are ready." From the front row, Marco beamed at her with wide, proud eyes. His presence steadied her. Taking a deep breath, Elena began to speak. Her voice wavered at first, but grew stronger with every word. She told her story, about the girl who once couldn't meet her own reflection, who let the cruel voice inside her control everything. She spoke of the sticky notes, the breakdown in the storage room, and the moment she chose to rise instead of break. "I realized," she said, voice full of emotion, "that my greatest enemy wasn't out there. It was in here." She touched her chest gently. "But I learned to talk back. I learned to be kind to myself. And that changed everything." The room fell silent. Some wiped away tears. Others nodded slowly, understanding. When she finished, the applause was thunderous, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Afterward, a young girl, maybe 16, approached her. With teary eyes and a trembling smile, she whispered, "Now I believe I can change too." Elena knelt and hugged her, holding on a moment longer. As she stood again, her eyes swept over the audience, strangers once, now connected by the truth of her voice. Narration, final line. Sometimes, the voice you need to hear most, is your own, finally speaking with love. Conclusion. Elena's journey is a testament to the quiet yet transformative power of positive self-talk. From a young woman trapped in cycles of self-doubt and silence, she rises not through luck or outside rescue, but by learning to speak to herself with kindness, courage, and truth. Each scene, from her tear-stained mirror to the standing ovation in the library, reveals a deeper truth: the words we tell ourselves shape the life we live. Her story reminds us that healing doesn't begin with perfection, it begins with permission. The permission to speak gently to ourselves. To believe in small beginnings. To rewrite the script playing inside our heads. Through sticky notes, setbacks, and second chances, Elena discovers that change doesn't always shout, it whispers. And when we start listening, we begin to rise. This is more than just Elena's story, it's a mirror held up to all of us. Because within each heart is a voice waiting to be heard, a story waiting to be rewritten. And sometimes, the first step toward a better life isn't out there, it's in the words we choose to speak to ourselves.